Now, something everyone is going to be asking themselves, does TONEX ONE sound exactly the same as the Big Box TONEX? Is there any tonal consequence by shrinking this big box down into this tiny enclosure? Now, I'm not going to get crazy nerdy science on you here, but I do want to just show you an A/B test between these two, and then I also want to show you a quick little null test, playing them both in mono together with polarity in and then with polarity reversed, so you can kind of hear them that way. But I will give one major caveat, and that is the input trim and the main volume is very difficult to match between the Big Box and TONEX ONE, because on the Big Box you have a numerical value, and on TONEX ONE you only have the knobs with no indication of exactly where it's set. And so I do know that null tests don't totally work if the gain is not perfectly matched, so it's impossible probably for me to perfectly match them together, but I did the best that I could at getting the volumes as close together as possible and the input trim as close, at least to my ear, as possible so you could hear them. Now, to adjust the main volume and the input trim on TONEX ONE, you're going to hold the Alt button down for 6 seconds, and you'll know that it's in kind of that global configuration mode when the bass and mid knobs change color and the treble knob becomes clear. At least it's clear when you're not playing, because that treble knob is then the input trim knob. And as you play, that LED will turn from clear for no signal to a light green to a bright green to red. That means it's clipping. And so that's how you adjust the input trim. And then the big knob in this setting is your main volume. So what I found out is that for me, these settings right here on TONEX ONE match my Big Box TONEX with the input trim set at 8.5 and the main volume set at 0. And then to exit out of the global mode, just press the Alt button again. So here's the two side by side. I'm gonna A/B them back and forth and just let you hear them and see what you think. Now, I don't know about you, but to me, those sound pretty much exactly the same, and that's a really encouraging thing. But let's get down to a little bit more detail. So for this test, instead of having an A/B switch, I have a buffered splitter. So my guitar signal is being evenly split into the TONEX ONE and Big Box TONEX accordingly, and then going into separate channels in my DAW, and you can see those based on those labels right there. And so together they sound like this. So you can see that the volumes are pretty much matched exactly. The gain is as close as I can get it to being matched. Let me show you that again. So you see the metering reaches about the exact same peak every time. Now, I don't know about you in your listening environment right now, but for me, playing that example, I could hear a little bit of comb filtering, which means most likely that one of these is slightly delayed from the other one. Every digital effect has a little bit of latency to it, so it's likely that one of these has more latency than the other. Now, in a perfect world, if we were comparing two identical products next to each other, I could reverse the polarity on my DISO Plus, and those two signals would completely cancel each other out. There would be no sound whatsoever. Now, Charlie at Pinstripe Pedals made this little custom DISO box for me as we're kind of working on something, and this switch reverses the polarity. So green is kind of the normal in polarity, and then red reverses that polarity. So if these two sounds were exactly the same with no differences whatsoever, you wouldn't hear anything when I play. But you do hear something. And to be honest, both normal polarity and reverse polarity doesn't sound great together. Again, 2 amps that are the exact same stacked on top of each other should sound bigger and beefier. And because of the little comb filtering happening, you're not going to get that cancellation effect. Now, let's try this. Let's record it in my DAW and then watch the waveforms and see which one is more delayed from the other, and see if we line them up, if we can't get them to perfectly cancel out. So let's just record something simple and percussive. Now again, when we go into Logic and we line those up, the one with the reverse polarity should completely cancel itself out if the gain structuring is exactly the same on both pedals. We're going to find out. Okay, so now we're in Logic and we have our waveforms, and let's listen to them. Okay, obviously just a little bit of comb filtering going on, so let's zoom it way in and see kind of how bad we are here. So that's a pretty clear view. So you can see that the dip right there does not match up with the dip right there. Now, surprisingly, TONEX ONE is the one with less latency because it's ahead of the Big Box TONEX. I would have thought probably it would have been reversed, but that's probably good news for a lot of you guys who care about latency and stuff like that, that whatever is going on inside of TONEX ONE is actually a little bit faster than Big Box TONEX. Okay, I have to interrupt the video because I want to show you the latency between TONEX ONE and TONEX Pedal in general. Kind of after filming this video, I realized it would be really helpful for all of us to get a baseline for what latency is like on TONEX Pedal and TONEX ONE, just overall. And so I actually found something a little bit interesting. So I recorded this little beep sound effect through a buffered splitter, through TONEX ONE and then TONEX Pedal, and did come to that same conclusion that TONEX ONE is indeed a little bit faster than TONEX Pedal, but not by as much as I originally thought. Both of them have roughly 3 milliseconds of latency from the clean signal. So the Big Box TONEX, and by the way, they're using the same capture. So basically on this side is my ProSonic, just for reference. So it's the same capture. So as you could tell by the big time display, it's got about just a little over 3 milliseconds to the TONEX ONE, and maybe like 3.25, 3.25 milliseconds, I don't know, for the TONEX Pedal. So really, it's not a big difference. It is enough of a difference to have comb filtering, and if you were to try to run the TONEX ONE and TONEX Pedal together, let's say you already have one, Big Box TONEX, and you're interested in purchasing a single TONEX ONE and running them in stereo, might have issues with that unless there may be different captures and you keep them hard panned. But just wanted to give you guys a little update on just overall latency of both pedals. So, the question becomes, if we line these perfectly up, will the Null Test work? And so let's try to line them up as best as we can, kind of find a common point, maybe right where it crosses the midline right here on both. Zoom in as much as I can. I think that's as close as you're going to get. Okay, so let's see how they sound now. Sounds a bit fuller. Now, it shouldn't sound like anything if they were exactly the same on this example. Actually, that's pretty darn good. To be totally honest, I've done this test several times before hitting record, but this particular test, I think I lined it up a little bit better. And I really think the only difference you're hearing is probably the little bit of like the input trim difference, the gain difference, because it's almost totally silent compared to this. So I think it's safe to say that TONEX ONE just sounds exactly the same as Big Box TONEX. Maybe somebody out there is going to do a way more scientific test, but I hope this just goes to show that we're not losing anything by going to the smaller enclosure. Thanks for listening all the way to the end, and again, do the like and subscribe thing, and check out the Tone Shepherd on Insta and my website, and stay tuned for more videos and demos and captures for the TONEX. Be blessed, stay connected, and I'll see you in the next video.